For today, I just want to touch on the Milwaukee Bucks, who have absolutely turned a corner. I think this is the Bucks that we've kind of all come to expect, especially under Mike Budenholzer when everyone's healthy. This is just what they do. And if you look specifically now, the last sort of week and a half, 2 weeks since Chris Middleton's been back in the rotation, even though his minutes aren't quite there yet. But that offense really has turned things around in a very notable way. And this is what they did to bad teams in the past. If you look at seasons gone by, they would just blow the doors down early, put up immense offensive efficiency ratings across the board. And I think that that's what we're going to start to see from them again in these next couple of weeks as well. So, like I said, specifically these last sort of week and a half, they played Detroit, Indiana before they got Halliburton back, and the Pelicans, 3 teams who were sliding and heading in the wrong direction. All 3 of those games, they scored in the 90th percentile in points per possession, 90th percentile or better in effective field goal percentage, covered the spread obviously in all those games, but covered the first quarter spreads. Those, I think, are the angles to be looking at for the Milwaukee Bucks heading into this All-Star break. I think they really do put a beat down on teams who struggle, who are bottom 10 defensively, bottom 10 in net rating. This is kind of the time for them now, I think, to string together some consistency. And it seems the emphasis right now is to get that offense up and running. So, Chris, when it comes to the Bucks, do you think that's going to be the case now these next couple of weeks? Is there an opportunity for us to get ahead of the market in taking, whether it's their team total, whether it's their first half spreads? Are they the best ways to attack Milwaukee right now that they are fully healthy and it seems like going to go make a real run at this and push Boston for that 1 seed in the East?
I would absolutely agree, Josh. I don't see a reason why. I think, minus Bobby Portis being injured right now, this team is clicking on all cylinders. We know getting Joe Ingles back recently has also only added an upgrade to that, that secondary unit that they have. He's, still a tremendous playmaker. Not much of a defender, but he can, get guys in the right spot. He can definitely still knock down some, wide open shots as well. And his facilitating also takes a burden off of Drew Holiday having to play extended minutes as well. And I think, big picture, Josh, for the Bucks is that this thing could break up, at the end of the year. They don't have Chris Middleton signed long term. So, a big push to, get there is what's coming right now. I also really love what I'm hearing out of the locker room from, yours truly, Giannis Antetokounmpo, talking about putting his foot on, pretty much all the other opposing teams' necks, pretty much is what he's saying, what I'm hearing, out of the locker room. Just his ability to never be, he doesn't want to be considered as a player that's ever, not locked in and becoming complacent. He really wants to continue to, just win the games and play the right way and always continue to get better. He talked about, it being that way for Jordan and players like Iverson and players like LeBron. And he mentioned Steph Curry in a recent interview as well. So I would absolutely agree with that, Josh. I think their offense is hitting at a really, really, good clip right now. And I don't see them slowing down anytime in the near future, especially as home favorites against some of these weaker, level competition type guys. Giannis just had 53 points last night. This dude is he's on a tear. Granted, all the offense that they have, and I think there's the last point I'll make, Josh. I think there's still some room for them to get better because we have seen some inconsistencies from some of these 3-point shooters, right? They have guys like Wesley Matthews that can come in and knock down shots, the Pat Connaughtons, the Grayson Allens of the world. So I would only be able to agree with you there, Josh. I think we absolutely take advantage of that. I remember last year, Bucks first half was like an auto bet during a certain part of the season. So I can see that happening again, Josh. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's basically where we're at right now in the season, like you said. So my biggest homework review, like I said, the Milwaukee Bucks first quarter potentially, but definitely first half and team total looks against bottom half teams who are sort of bottom half in net rating, bottom half in defensive efficiency. They're going to really get that offense to click. And I think that there's a really good opportunity to stay ahead of the market. So that would be my strong suggestion heading into the All-Star break, is to really keep an eye on them taking advantage of those spots. And like you said, Chris, as well, when it comes to just a little bit of motivation, if you will, for a lot of these guys who we don't know what the future is for a lot of this team going forward. And the one thing I think that is of high value in a situation like this is having a leader like Giannis, like you said, who can bring everyone together and ensure that everyone's on the same page at all times, regardless of what the future might hold, but really to focus on the present and make sure that they're putting their best foot forward every single night. That goes a long way because as we've seen today, the flip side of it is you get someone like Kyrie Irving who seemingly is on the same page, but then decides that he doesn't want to be on that page anymore and he's going to go do things his way. So look, I think that's probably the biggest difference right now is having a leader like that who can ensure that the locker room is unified and on the same page going forward versus one that might be in it for their own personal reasons. And I think, like you said, when you have guys like Chris Middleton, whose future is sort of uncertain to a certain extent, making sure that they are very much engaged with what's going on right now and not worried about their own personal gains goes a very, very long way in these situations. So for me, short term, like I said, opportunity on the Bucks in the marketplace, first half spreads, team totals against these lower teams. But for the future as well, without going too far off topic, Chris, do you think this is still the only team that can potentially compete with Boston in the East? Or do you think that there are other teams that are still above them?
That's a good question, Josh. That's a really good question, man. I think, the injuries that we've seen has really created a lot of parity in the league. I was going through it the other day, Josh, and I was like, man, pretty much every team that we think that could, make a deep run, like those top 5 teams, both the East and the Western Conference, have all, kind of dealt with some kind of injury to a superstar, right? Or, some significant role player, right? So I think there's time will definitely tell for us, Josh. I think that there are some competitors, some guys that have something to say about the Bucks, getting out of the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics, of course, being one of those teams. But I also think that there's some value to looking at teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? The Cavs are a team that also presents with a lot of sides, and that's what you need. You need a team. If you're going to be able to take Giannis out, you're going to have a defensive plan, right? You're not going to be able to hang your hats on the offensive end and think that you're going to be able to outscore the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis getting the ball out in the front court, in the fast break, right? Jrue Holiday always is one of those players that always seems to step up to the occasion, and he's not talked about a lot. I was happy that he made the All-Star team, but he's not talked about a lot. He's kind of disregarded, but this guy still can play really, really good basketball. I think we saw it 2 weeks ago when Giannis wasn't in there, and he put up those numbers and kind of reminded us that, hey, I am still Jrue Holiday and I can do this when my team needs us to. So I think defensively, I would look at a team like Cleveland to be able to give them some pushback in that regard, Josh. But I think it's those teams at the top. I think we take Brooklyn out now, based on what Kyrie.
We have to take them out, right? We have to, even if they stay together. I think we have to take them out. That the fact that this report's come out might just be enough to really break up any momentum that they would have had.
Absolutely, Josh. So I think those would be the top the top 3 teams. But I also think until the 76ers is not going to get that credit, Josh, until James Harden really can kind of prove what he's worth in the playoffs. It doesn't matter that he's averaging double-digit assists and getting these triple doubles and against these lower level competition type teams, but I do think that there's something to Philly kind of they've been playing really, really good basketball. They went on the Western Conference road trip 2 weeks ago, and they won every single game, Josh. I know people were trying to find a spot to fade them in because those Eastern Conference teams are not supposed to play that well. They're late at night on the West Coast, and they won every single game, including the last one against Sacramento without Joel Embiid and James Harden. So even more impressive. I think Doc's doing a really good job with them, but I think those 4, Josh, your Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Philadelphia 76ers are probably the top 4 teams in the Western Conference right now.
Yeah, fully agree with that. Quick one in the chat as well from Zachariah, our guy. Does Greek make the people around him better? For me, it's absolutely, not just because of what he can do in terms of helping create for them, but he's the type of player who just garners so much attention on the floor, and that defenses basically have to essentially double him, especially in the playoffs. You have to double him at some point. And the space that creates for your second, your third option guys is just invaluable. And then having him and someone who's capable of obviously finding those guys as well in those situations makes their life just immensely easier. So I personally am of the belief he does make people around him better. I have heard arguments, not so much against it, but that potentially he doesn't, in that, he hasn't got that same level of playmaking that maybe someone like Luka or Jokic has. But I mean, that's kind of really nitpicking, I think, at what he brings to the table. Would you disagree or agree with that he does make people better?
I would only be able to agree with that, Josh. I mean, I think it's consistent in what we would be able to, if we were to look it up, right? We could see how many assists his team averages, how many, what he brings on the defensive end, and then it's not even just the basket, like what happens on the basketball court, Josh, as far as his his playmaking and his scoring and his defense and his ability to garner attention, but it's also just his leadership, right? He just is one of those guys that's ultimately always locked in. He doesn't mind answering questions from the media, and he's a really, he's a true leader. You can tell that that's a quality that was instilled in him probably as a young man before he even took the ranks of being one of the perennial, best players in the NBA. So I would absolutely agree in every facet of the game. I don't think Giannis is put on a team and that team's worse.
Exactly. That's probably the best way to put it, right? Is if you put him in any team, they're only going to get better, and so are the players around him. So that kind of addresses that. But that's our homework review for today on the Milwaukee Bucks. Let's keep an eye on how that tracks in these next few weeks as well, and hopefully we can take full advantage of their spots and situations against some of those lower teams.